What's up guys, I'm GamerMD83 and before we jump into the series, I first wanted to explain what this is exactly. The series is a set of videos which will eventually lead to my explanation of the Bioshock Infinite ending. I thought that instead of just explaining the ending, it would be easier and probably more lucrative to first explain some things that are pretty important in order to understand the ending. So I will be pretty much talking about individual characters and specific hints or situations that should be discussed first before we delve into the ending. I believe it goes without saying that since the purpose of these videos is to eventually share my interpretation of the ending, each video will contain major spoilers. That's pretty much it. Hope you guys enjoyed this series and thanks for watching. So whether you've played the game or not, I'm pretty sure you know who Elizabeth is. And if you don't, trust me, you've seen her in the trailers. Elizabeth is the co-protagonist and probably the most important character in the game. She's a 20-year-old that has been imprisoned up in a tower for pretty much her whole life. I know, it kind of sounds like a fairy tale that we've all heard at some point in our life, and to top it off, she even looks like a Disney princess. Anyways, this tower that she has been imprisoned in is possibly the highest tower she could have ever been stuck in. Why? It's on Monument Island in Colombia, the floating city in the sky, so escape is pretty pointless. Not only because of its location, but also because it is guarded by a monstrous winged creature known as Songbird that keeps her from even trying. As a child, Songbird was her only friend, but as she grew older and started to be introduced to the world outside, she started to feel more and more like a prisoner, and she quickly started to see Songbird as her warden. So how did she even get to know the world outside if she was always stuck in that tower? Tears. Tears are pretty much a tear in time, or a tear within different dimensions. The special thing about Elizabeth is that she can manipulate them. This is what makes her so important, not only to the game, but to her jailer, Zachary Comstock, the leader and founder of Columbia. Throughout her life, Elizabeth has pretty much been a lab rat because of this unique power she possesses in order to complete some unknown plan Comstock has for her. And the way that Comstock keeps her powers in check is through a siphon in Monument Island. So the purpose of a siphon in general is to transfer either liquid or, in this case, power from one place to another. So not only does this machine keep her powers in check, but it also leeches her powers, or in other words, it sucks her powers from her. When you see the siphon for the first time, you find different warning signs around the siphon, and one of them says, "Dangerous while leeching specimen." Aside from seeing the signs, you also witness the siphon leeching Elizabeth's power. So no matter where she is in Colombia, as long as that siphon is still operational, she cannot use her powers at full potential. At the location of the siphon, we see 3 items that seem to be connected to the siphon: a teddy bear, a poetry book, and a bloodstained rag from Elizabeth's Menarche, or first period. These 3 items obviously belong to Elizabeth at different points of her life, and the significance of them is pretty much unknown, but it seems to just be a first glimpse of what tears could do. If you click on the brown bear, it then turns red. Click on the book and it also turns a different color, and the rag goes from bloodied to clean. It's pretty much just showing us that in one dimension the bear is brown and in another it's red, etc. This could mean that these things are just variables and not constants in the space-time continuum. It's also speculated that these items could also indicate spikes or changes in Elizabeth's power. It seems that all 3 may be connected to the loss of innocence. As a child, her only companion was her teddy bear. It was taken away. Poetry is many times referred to being a sugar-coated means of opening your eyes to the cruelties of the real world. And the Menarche usually signifies the physical transformation of a young girl to a young woman. Probably one of the first things that you notice in your first interaction with Elizabeth is that the top part of her little finger on her right hand is missing and she wears a thimble to cover it up. This may be a small detail, but it ends up being the most important detail of the whole game. When you're introduced to Elizabeth for the first time, you quickly find out that in spite of her situation, she is still a lively young woman that enjoys art, singing, dancing, and has dreams of one day going to Paris. Also, since she didn't have much to do in the tower, her biggest pastime was reading. She's pretty much a walking encyclopedia, ranging from lockpicking skills, medical treatment, code breaking, and even being able to recognize geographical coordinates. After you save Elizabeth from Monument Tower and almost get eaten by Songbird in the process, your true journey through the game begins. But now you're accompanied by Elizabeth, who proves to be extremely handy with all the practical skills she possesses. Her lack of experience in the real world do put you into some tight situations from time to time, but still, you can't help but develop a soft spot for her. So with Elizabeth now following you around, you become more acquainted with her strange powers. She can't create tears, but she could see them and open them. At first, it seems as if she can't really harness what is behind the tears, but as time passes, you start to realize that she can, and it all seems to be related with her feelings or moods. She also tells you that as a girl, she could actually create tears between universes instead of just opening them, but that as she grew older, she started to lose that ability. This is most likely the progression of the siphon. As she grew stronger, the siphon did as well, limiting her powers as the years went by. At first, she is an extremely naive girl who is promised to be taken to Paris, but when she finds out that it was just a lie to get her to join you, she kindly expresses her disgust and runs away. After you risk your life to save her from some thugs, she begrudgingly joins you again with the promise that after you both secure a ride, you take her to Paris. During her journey with you, she realizes that Comstock and Lady Comstock are her parents, as she is referred to as the seed of the prophet, and also learns that Comstock had plans for her to become the new prophet. This angers her greatly and says that she wants nothing to do with the man that imprisoned her for 20 years. Her rage is heightened when she later finds out through Lady Comstock's journal that she was not her mother, because she refers to her as her husband's bastard. She then believes that it was Lady Comstock's idea to have her locked up. But later, she finds out through voxophones and tears that Comstock is not her father, and that he had actually had Lady Comstock killed and the Lutesses, so they wouldn't reveal this information to anybody. One major character-changing moment for Elizabeth was when she kills Daisy Fitzroy, the leader of the Vox Populi, a revolutionary group. It is said that this scene is Elizabeth's baptism in blood. This affects her so much, but also makes her mature drastically, not only emotionally and mentally, but even her look changes. She now wears more mature clothing, cuts her hair, and slowly starts to lose that childlike aura that was so evident in the beginning. It seems as if her powers even become more focused after this. She seems to have more control over the tears, almost as if she can now summon things behind the tears depending on her thoughts and moods. For example, later on in the story, Elizabeth gets captured by Songbird and is taken back to Comstock. Here she is tortured in order to turn her into an obedient subject for Comstock to mold into the new prophet and leader of Columbia. When she doesn't respond to this, Comstock decides to have her implanted with a leash to make her obey. This procedure is highly intrusive on her body and obviously painful, but Comstock insists on no anesthetics or sedatives, and in order to keep her powers under control at that moment, Comstock has 3 siphons in the room, all leeching her power. This almost goes back to the idea of losing her innocence through pain. It seems as if her emotions and feelings are what allow her to harness her power. After you save her from the situation, she opens up a tear conveniently to a different world where there is a hurricane occurring. This hurricane ends up sucking in the scientists that were working on her, killing them. And not only does she do this once, but she does it twice in a row, proving to you that this is no mere coincidence, but that she almost chose where the tear would lead. Before you reach Elizabeth in this situation though, you end up going through tears, eventually traveling deeper and deeper through time. For you, it has only been no longer than an hour, but because of the tears, you have actually traveled through time, meaning that in the universe you started looking for Elizabeth, you never reached her because you kept going through tears. So what does this mean for Elizabeth? This means that she waited for you to rescue her for years, and when you finally reached her, she was now 92 years old and has long since become the new destructible prophet that Comstock wanted. So in the scene where you finally reach her, she pretty much has no more power to open tears, except for one more. The one she saved for when you did reach her. The one that would take you back to the moment before she was implanted with the leash. Old Elizabeth gives you a glimpse into her future, letting you see her attacking New York City. She gives you a piece of paper with a bird cage. But it's not only that, it's a code that she tells you younger Elizabeth will eventually understand in order to prevent this future from ever happening. So that's how you end up going back in time to save Elizabeth and continue your journey, not to Paris anymore, but to kill Zachary Comstock. Once the two of you finally reach Comstock, the turning point of the whole game, you can plainly see that the only thing Elizabeth wants to know is why. She wants desperately to understand why she was kept locked away from the world. She wants to know why she has the power she has, and during this encounter, Comstock reveals some information that doesn't quite make sense to you or Elizabeth. This then leads to a struggle where you end up drowning Comstock. After this event, Elizabeth later deciphers the code that you gave her from old Elizabeth. It's not a cage, it is the musical notes, C-A-G-E, that are used in the melody to summon Songbird. She ends up acquiring the whistler that is used to summon Songbird, and now with Songbird under her control, she sends it to destroy the siphon in Monument Tower, which releases her power's restrictions and immediately goes from being a young woman that knows nothing of the world to an omniscient woman capable of not only seeing the future in one world, but the outcomes of every subsequent world. And the role you, Booker DeWitt, play in it.